This is a Channel Africa podcast. You can also get Channel Africa on satellite PAS10, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and OpenView Bouquet Channel 628.
And we're about to get into conversations encircling themselves around World Environment Day. And we sort of recapping from yesterday's hashtag, Beat Plastic Solution. A lot of conversations came through on that front, and we sort of looking to unpack the realities that we see ourselves in as a country and a continent at large as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's seeing many countries on the continent kind of moving away from the use of plastic, or at least thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
And this is in light of yesterday marking World Environment Day. And, the 2023 campaign, as you say, is Beat Plastic Pollution, which is largely focused on solutions around plastic pollution. And it highlights regional as well as international policies, technologies and innovations that provide real lasting solutions to this global problem. And to talk to us about this is associate at EED Advisory, a multidisciplinary consulting firm based in Nairobi, Kenya. And the name is Elma Odhiambo. Yeah? Elma, a very good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon. I say struggling to pronounce the second name.
Did I get it right?
Oh, yes.
Did I get it right?
Yes, if you speak of English, but my mother tongue will say you didn't get it right.
How would
do
you
we say
pronounce
it?
it in your home language?
So you'll probably say Odhiambo.
Odhiambo. Okay, there we go. That's easy
Yes.
enough. So, thank you, Elma, for your time
Yes.
this afternoon. Tell us why it is that, we are singling, it seems, out plastic as a main pollutant this year.
I think the conversation around plastic is not new, and this is owing to the devastating effects that plastic has had, both on animals, on human beings, and also on the environment at large. And sometimes someone will be saying, we are giving plastic too much sins that it doesn't bear. We are actually the ones who have the problem. So, because plastics don't walk to the environment, they don't walk into people's houses, we simply take them there. So, we are simply accusing an innocent being. So, we need to put our houses in order.
Yeah, that we created on top of that, Elma,
Yes.
Not only do
yes.
we fetch it from whence it is, but we also created this animal that we're now complaining about.
Accusing, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
so we
right.
create it and we accuse it, yes.
Absolutely. Elma, we're going to take a short break. I'd like you to hang on, and we are going to continue this conversation when we get back. If you've just joined us, remember that you can get in touch with us on +27634069126. Alternatively, on Twitter at Channel Africa 1, at Mpumi Ngubeni, at Miss_Ndikumana. That's where you can make your contributions pertaining to World Environment Day, where we are looking specifically at plastic pollution. We're going to be back after this.
Channel Africa, we think differently.
Ladies and gentlemen,
We think differently. The African perspective. The Upside, taking the African perspective to fresh levels.
We currently in conversation with Elma Odhiambo, who is an associate at EED Advisory, a multidisciplinary consulting based firm, or rather firm based in Nairobi, Kenya. And we are looking at conversations that are rotating around yesterday's commemoration and observation, which was World Environment Day. The hashtag for this year, or the theme for this year, is Beat Plastic Solution. And we obviously know that Kenya has quite an interesting story to tell when it comes to plastics. And I wanted to afford you the opportunity, Elma, to walk us through how we're dealing with the beast we created in Kenya.
Okay, so yes, Kenya made a tremendous step in trying to cap or curtail the spread of plastic in the country. And it was a hard decision to make, but I still think if you talk to the cabinet secretary, then he will say we probably would have waited for some time to make some strategies in place before we actually implemented the ban. So in 2017, the country had to ban plastics, the use of single-use plastic, and we realized these were mostly used by small-scale traders, and they were the most affected. And then year in after, we always get reports on where have we reached. But I have to admit, we currently do not have a tracking system. For example, if you want to Google and search what is the tracking system for Kenya's ban, you wouldn't find something substantive, but the Environmental Agency usually reports on how we are progressing as a country. And most of the times you will also realize we report on cases of either they are being smuggled in through the porous borders, or traders have simply refused to comply, some of them. And even up to date, we have cases in court owing to the same ban on plastic, especially from the manufacturers, because there was a proposition also to ban the plastic bottles, which hasn't taken effect. So there's been misses and there's been also gains in it, but we are trying to see how best the country can be able to manage the menace called plastics by embracing circularity in the whole value chain.
It's interesting for me, Alma, that you say that, if you were to do kind of a check on the period in which you had banned plastic, there wouldn't be much data coming out of that. How long a period had this gone on for?
From the time it was banned. So we banned it in 2017, and we are currently 6 years on. Because it was banned around February, and even up to the time when we were celebrating the 5th anniversary, I think was last year. This year we haven't had that conversation, but last year there was a suggestion that we need to have stricter implementation. But it's gonna be hard for us as a country, as much as we reflect back and see we need to strictly implement this, because there's the aspect of people are hungry. Just yesterday, I was reading a newspaper, and some traders from one of the borders were mentioning that it's a lucrative business, just shipping in the plastics from another country into the country, and then the traders down there are able to get them and continue to do the business that they are doing. So it's a bit more of us trying to see where did we go wrong and what can we rectify, especially because you look at the neighboring countries, they haven't banned it. Save for Rwanda, which is not so much neighboring Kenya. So these other ones haven't banned it. So there are chances that you'll still have them being smuggled in and getting into the country through many other ways. And is a big thing, because you look at Africa as a whole, we only produce about 1%, but we are the greatest consumers of plastic. So it's still in our system. So I will say it could be earlier to say the ban has worked or has not worked, but it needs to be relooked into and how best it can be implemented so that we're able to get the exact desire that we needed, which is a clean and healthy environment as enshrined in most of our constitutions. Because you'll also note that as we try to do this, the government has also tried to bring in some incentive, like having to remove the VAT, excess duty on some importations that are geared towards bringing alternatives to the plastic. So it's a step that the government is taking, but it's not intentional because it's more of a formality. If you look at the amount of investments we are putting into this, it's not much as what is required. So still there is a huge gap, and that's why we are saying, or I will say from my end, that we need to reflect a bit. Where did we go wrong? Where did we hit the target? And what else can we do to ensure that we are doing the right thing to ensure sustainable consumption or production across all the value chains?
I now want to, and I'm just listening to your response, Alma, and I realize something. Perhaps it's not just plastic that is meant to be the conversation, but rather the reality of enculturing the nation to be able to recycle plastic so that we don't find ourselves in this predicament. We started off the conversation there saying that plastic does not find itself on seashores. It doesn't find itself into spaces and places where it shouldn't be. We do that. Do you perhaps think that could be part of the solution moving forward?
Yeah, it's definitely part of the solution, because if you look at it as a whole, it's a matter of a mindset, because you will still find people, they buy items and then the way they dispose of the litter is still one thing. You'll be walking in the roads and you find litter everywhere. So it means it's not more of the law, because the law has also been found in other ways. That is a bit enslaving. So people want to operate in a more freely environment. But how can you bring in a framework where people operate more freely, that in the absence or with the law, they are still able to maintain a clean and healthy environment? So it's a whole conversation of how can we, as a society, as a country, as a continent, work towards ensuring that as we produce, as we consume, we are doing it in a sustainable manner, so that if it is a plastic bottle, for example, we can be able to reuse it often. So we find the aspect of disposing as the last resort. And when we have that as the last resort, it means it will take longer for us to find all these plastics on our environment. I'll give you an instant. For example, when I was growing up, we used to have metals everywhere. Like you'll walk and you find metals here and there across the road. But these days you don't see metals. Why? Because we gave value to the metals. You'll find there are people physically collecting those metals. They're taking them somewhere. They're going to be reproduced to make something better. And so that is a transition that perhaps we could look forward to, especially across all the value chain, not only to the plastic, as you're saying, because plastics will be here with us. We may want to go ahead and eliminate plastic, but then we find another menace. So it's not just plastics. We might find menace coming in now, tomorrow, the next day, and it's upon us to look at it wholesomely and see how can we better our environment? How can we live coexistively with the environment, so that as we move the country to more developed nations, and then we're able to say, okay, we have reached at a level where we're able to manage what we consume and what we produce.
Powerful. Thank you so much, Elma, for your time. Absolutely appreciating your presence on the show this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
The voice of Elma Odhiambo, who is an associate at EED Advisory, a multidisciplinary consulting firm based in Nairobi, Kenya.
That podcast was courtesy of Channel Africa, the African perspective.